If your Google Shopping ads are getting clicks but not sales, the problem isn't always your products. It's often how the account is managed. Even with the perfect feed, bad account decisions can kill performance. In this video, I'll show you how to optimize your Google Shopping campaigns from an account management point of view, what to change inside in Google Ads, how to structure your campaigns, and how to push budget towards what actually drives revenue. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Liam and I'm the founder of Vulcan. We are a premier Google Ads agency for e-commerce brands. Our team have generated millions in revenue for Shopify brands using this exact optimization playbook for Google Shopping. So with that said, let's get into the video. So when I talk about campaign optimizations in Google Shopping, I always start by talking about campaign structure. Now, with campaign structure, the first recommendation I always have is to have a clear delineation between branded and non-branded campaigns. So I have a separate video on this, but just the general overview of how you set this up is you have a branded shopping campaign that's set to low priority and set to a really high target ROAS because conversion rate is going to be quite high. Your CPCs are going to be quite low. So generally you'll see a really high actual ROAS here with these campaigns. And then you'll have non-branded shopping campaigns, which will be set to high or medium priority with more modest target ROAS goals, more so in keeping with what you'd expect from non-branded traffic. Then you use a series of negative keyword lists of day-to-day optimizations. You then need to ensure that other aspects of your branded and non-branded shopping campaigns are mirroring each other to ensure the integrity of this split or this delineation. And I cover all that in my dedicated branded shopping video. From there, my next overarching principle when it comes to campaign structure is all about making sure our top performing products, those which will push greatest volume, revenue, profit, that they are getting adequate budget. Thereafter, how you structure your campaigns is going to depend on a few different factors like your budget, the number of products you have, the type of business it is that you run, and obviously the general goals for your business as well. Now, I'm going to get straight into some of my favorite structures. This is not an exhaustive list. I don't have a cut and paste for every business. You have to understand that there's so much at play when it comes to determining a good structure, but these are some of my favorites that I've used to really high degrees of success in 2026. So the bestsellers approach. So obviously for a lot of e-commerce brands, a small selection of your products will drive a really high amount of revenue. So a lot of times it's 20% of your products is driving 80% of your revenue. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less. In that instance, it's really important that those 20% of products are getting adequate budget. So one way that you can ensure they're getting adequate budget and that they are getting prioritized is by isolating them into their own bestsellers campaign. Now that bestsellers campaign can get a high priority status in Google Shopping to ensure that basically it's prioritized first in auctions. Anytime it's eligible in an auction, one of those products is pushed out first. Now, I would exclude that campaign from serving on branded queries using a branded negative keyword list. You could then set a secondary non-branded campaign for basically all of your other products that aren't your bestsellers. So kind of like a catch-all, set that to medium priority. And then once again, also add your branded negative keyword list. The next campaign that you would have would be your branded shopping campaign. It will cover the entirety of your catalog, set to low priority, really high target ROAS, as I said. And that's just a really clear way of making that split between branded and non-branded traffic. It just makes it easier to actually interpret performance of these non-branded campaigns. So that is one way that you could separate out your standard shopping campaigns when it comes to that typical hero product e-commerce business that maybe you have, 2 to 5 leading products and you want to push those first with their own dedicated budget. Well, then you could use some form of a split like this. Another alternative that is working quite well, obviously at the moment we're in December at the time of recording this video, is seasonality. So particularly for fashion and apparel brands, or also for gift giving brands. So if you have a really strong gift giving brand, you'll actually notice that there are tons of individual events or promotions. So like even coming up, you'll have like Valentine's, you'll have like a back to school in some places, you'll have Mother's Day, Father's Day, all these kind of things. And then you'll have more evergreen products like birthday products or anniversary, things like that have no seasonality peak. So sometimes it can make sense to basically have dedicated campaigns for dedicated events or dedicated seasonal events, because it means that coming up to the event, you can gradually increase budget. You can manage the budget really closely during the event. And then also you can gradually taper that budget down after the event. So it just gives you more control, particularly important if it's a more acute event, particularly if it is something like Valentine's Day that maybe has a 2-week lead period. And then after Valentine's Day, you really want to shut it down as quick as possible. Having it in its own campaign really allows you to put that dedicated budget behind it day on day, as you have that avalanche effect coming into maybe 2 weeks, into 1 week out from the event itself. So that's for like the gift giving side. But then, as I said, for the fashion brand, you might have an autumn collection and a winter collection, and they will slightly cross over, but you will want to be gradually increasing budget to your winter collection, obviously decreasing budget to your autumn collection, and having them separate gives you that control to gradually increase one while decreasing the other. So that would be a sensible way of splitting your shopping campaigns if you are a brand as such. For new products, it is also something that I like to do if they are very distinct to existing products with a very different customer avatar. They don't really share a lot of the learnings from your other products. Well, then it probably is a good idea to separate these out into your own campaigns as well. The other thing is Google doesn't know anything about these products. It may not be as efficient at getting you those initial conversions. You may still be trying to establish product market fit, amongst other things. So in that instance, you might prefer to run more of a manual bid strategy like manual CPC, while continually then having your other campaigns running on smart bidding because they're running, you know, really proven products, high volume, etc. So that would be another time when I'd recommend splitting it up. Product categories is another one. This isn't as black and white, but let's say an example, you sell shoes for men, women's and kids. If we're starting out, we could put all these together into a single campaign and just segment them at the ad group level. And that way you can actually look at obviously performance at an ad group level. You can look at search terms at an ad group level, and you can obviously add negative keywords to different ad groups. So for example, in your men's ad group, you might add women as a negative keyword. So to ensure basically that you don't get any of that women's traffic. If you have quite a high budget, it might make more sense to separate the 3 product categories out into their own shopping campaigns. The big benefit of this, once again, is that you can control budget behind it. So sometimes if you have your shopping campaign with your different ad groups inside and they are basically set to a global target ROAS of 200, 250% or whatever the case may be, and you find that your kids product category is outperforming everything else and it's basically hogging all the spend, but you want to put money through men's and women's products as well, well then you might be forced to actually go and segment it out in order to do that. If you have a lot of budget from the get-go, maybe you can do that right away. But if not, you know, as always, my default, as I say in other videos, is to consolidate where possible and only segment when I have a good reason to. So this is what that initial non-branded shopping campaign might look like with your different product categories at ad group level. The next thing then is margin segmentation. So some people, and I would have been in this bracket, I said it in another video, I would have been a proponent for margin-based campaign segmentation. So high margin products go into one campaign, low margin products go into a separate campaign. The theory behind this is that you can set a more aggressive, say, target ROAS to your high margin products, for example, and then a more conservative target ROAS to your low margin products. And basically it balances out then that hopefully per unit, you're achieving kind of similar profit and you're getting the most out of each individual product. The issue with that though is that quite often people will click on a product and then subsequently go on to complete a purchase of a different product on site. And if they click on a high margin product and then subsequently convert on a low margin product, well then they will be basically in that high margin bucket with a really, you know, aggressive target ROAS, but they've actually converted on a low margin product where we actually needed a much higher target ROAS. So that is in itself an issue. So it's not perfect. I'm using it less and less. If I see a catalog with a really, really wide variance in product margins, and I feel that it would be beneficial to split this up, something like POAS bidding, profit on ad spend, using a tool like Profit Metrics, is objectively a better course of action. It is more complex. It depends on your skill level as a media buyer, as an account manager, as a brand owner. But if you have a really wide variance in product margins, well, then maybe it is something to consider instead of the typical margin segmentation that you might hear. The next campaign segmentation approach I would take is all about query sculpting. Now, I find this works best for resellers or drop shippers, particularly high ticket drop shippers, but it involves creating a waterfall campaign structure using varying bids and priority levels. So it should always be running on manual CPC. That's something as well that's really important. So I'm actually going to jump straight into the diagram to get a kind of a sense of what's going on. So let's say we are a running brand, okay, and we are a reseller. We stock all different famous running brands, let's say really well-known brands. So Salomon is a really well-known running brand here, and our lead product that we have belonging to them is their running vest, their Act Skin 4. It's like one of their lead running vests at the moment. So we might feel that, okay, someone searching for Salomon running vest is of higher intent and more likely to convert than someone searching for a running vest. Someone searching for Salomon Act Skin 4 is even higher intent than someone searching Salomon running vest, because they obviously know the exact product it is that they're looking for. So as such, we actually want to give this a greater weighting in how we approach it. And we want to obviously give this the least weighting. So what we do basically is we set up this waterfall campaign using query sculpting, using a series of negative keyword lists, and it allows us to bid most aggressively using manual bidding for product queries, so like Solomon Axe Skin 4, a mid-level bid for branded queries. So this is product queries, this is branded queries, and then our lowest level bid for generic queries. Now we'll have a universal negative keyword list that we always want to block across all of our shopping placements. And then what we'll use is a series of brand negative keyword lists and product like negative keyword lists here. So you can see that we have a brand list and a product list. That means if someone searches for Solomon, then it's blocked from serving here. So it goes down to the next campaign in our waterfall. Now, if they search Solomon Act Skin 4, well, Act Skin 4 would be in our product list. So it would be blocked from serving here, but then it would also be blocked from serving here in our brand queries, because we also have our product list negative keyword here. And then it would flow down into this bottom campaign, which has the highest bid level. So we're bidding most aggressively because we really value the traffic, and it has the priority settings set to such high, medium, and low, and that just helps create that waterfall integrity across the campaigns. So it is quite a complex setup, I would say. There's multiple ways you can use query sculpting. This is the most common way that I've personally used it. As I said, it works really well for resellers if you do have that really strong variance in intent across terms. If anyone has any questions or want help implementing that, then just book a call using the link in the description below. I'm more than happy to help. Now, moving on away from campaign structures. So I obviously have gone through different ones there. I've talked about using kind of bestsellers, seasonality, talked about my reluctance to use margin-based segmentation. But regardless of what structure you use, you need to be able to interpret performance, because there's no point having a really good structure and then actually not know what's going on inside it. So the basic metrics we all should know, I'm not going to run through them all, but the obvious ones are your click metrics, your performance metrics, etc. But it's actually the additional metrics inside in shopping that are the ones that are going to make the biggest difference for you when it comes to actually optimizing your campaigns. So I have them broken into kind of benchmarks and then visibility metrics, and we'll go through them there now. So you have two benchmark metrics. The first is your benchmark max CPC. Now, some of these you'll have to go into columns and actually manually add them. They won't be there by default. But your benchmark max CPC is the average maximum cost per click that other advertisers are paying in your auction for similar products. So if you find, for example, that your benchmark CPC is $2, but you're only bidding $1, well, then you know that you're not bidding at the level of, say, your top competitors who are advertising similar products. So you're likely underbidding, you're likely missing out on traffic. It could be a reason for that, but it is good knowledge to have what other people are generally paying. Your benchmark click-through rate then, so I have it here as a desirability score. If your CTR is 0.5%, but the benchmark is 1.5%, it means competitors are getting 3 times more clicks for the same impressions. So either you've got a pricing issue and people don't find your offer enticing enough to click through, or it's to do with your image or your product title. So either your product title isn't relevant enough and you're bringing in low quality traffic, or your image isn't enticing enough, or your price in order to get people to actually click through. So they are your two competitive benchmarks that you need to actually really dig into at the product group level and make sure that you are optimizing those as much as possible. Next up is market share data, or more so to do with visibility. So these tell you how much of the total demand you're capturing. So the first is your search impression share, and this is the percentage of times your ads were shown out of the total number of times they could be shown. So it's obviously a percentage metric. So a 20% IS impression share says that you are serving 20% of the time you could be, but that means you're not serving 80% of the time you could be. Generally, there's two reasons as to why you're not serving. One is either you've run out of budget, or the second is your ad rank. And I'll get into search last IS rank in a moment, but jumping into search absolute top IS, this is the absolute top impression share, percentage of your impressions that appeared in the very first most prominent possible number one tile in the shopping carousel. So if you are seeing a really high search absolute top IS, then you are dominating. Now, there's often a case to be made that you don't always necessarily need to be in that very first place, but if you're there, you're putting yourself in a really strong position. You are essentially in the shop window. Search last IS rank. So this is basically the percentage of impressions you lost out on, not because of your budget, but because of your ad rank. Your ad rank was too low relative to other people in the auction who beat you in the auction. So basically, it's a factor of your bid times your feed quality. So if you have a high search last IS, there's two things you can do on a kind of global level. The first is you can increase your bid, just pay more and you'll be more competitive in the auction. The second thing you can do is improve the quality of your feed, and I'm going to be recording a video breaking down everything I know about product feed optimization. So either you can pay more or you can work harder and improve your listings. And the last metric I want to run through is click share. This is the estimated share of all achievable clicks that you have received. So if you have 90% impression share, that tells you that you're serving getting as many eyeballs as possible on you, but only 10% click share. That essentially says that people see your ad, so you're putting yourself in a good position, but they're choosing not to click. So once again, most often that's going to be price. And after that, then it's going to be product title and product image. So you really need to have a look inside in Google Merchant Center at your price competitiveness reports to understand where you are versus other people in the market. Because it sounds like if you have a really low click share, but a high impression share, you've got a pricing issue. So some other optimizations, obviously this goes without saying for every other campaign type, you need to make sure your bid strategy is correct and that you're managing it well. You're not having big swings in target ROAS values, just suffocating the algorithm. Correct budget allocation, so you're choosing the right campaign structure, ensuring that the most important products are never limited by budget if they are performing well. Your negative keyword updates, so a couple of times a week, you're in your search term reports, you're making sure that your traffic's really high quality, because if it's not, you are either going to A, waste money on irrelevant clicks, or the latter, which is often even worse, is if you are delivering traffic that's actually not relevant to your product listings, you'll end up serving really high impressions, but you won't get many clicks. What Google thinks when it sees listings that have really high impressions but very few clicks are that they're not relevant and they're not good, and you then get penalized as such. So you don't want that. So you want to find high impressions, low click terms, and if they're not relevant, exclude them. If they are relevant, well, then you need to figure out why you're not getting the clicks. Most often it's a pricing issue. If it's not, it's an image issue. And if it's not, it's a title issue. The shopping specific optimizations then is feed optimization. As I said, I'll have a video on that. Merchant center program optimization, another video on that. Product diagnostics check, that's coming too. And competitive price monitoring. So feed optimization is all about making sure your image is enticing. It kind of stops the scroll along the shopping carousel, making sure your product title is as relevant as possible, your reviews are coming in, your pricing is competitive, everything like that. Merchant center program optimization then is things like your top quality store badge. Are you making sure that you are including promotions when relevant? Product diagnostic checks, then that's also inside in Google Merchant Center. You can't advertise products that aren't approved in Google Merchant Center, so you got to make sure that. Competitive price monitoring then also in Google Merchant Center just tells you where you are, what's your benchmark pricing of all of your products relative to other people in the market, making sure that you're competitive as you need to be. Remember, Google Shopping is essentially a price comparison site. So after you apply all of these optimization steps, Google Shopping still needs ongoing management to remain profitable and actually grow, because small mistakes here can quickly waste ad spend. If you want help optimizing your Google Shopping campaigns or fixing an account that feels stuck, well then click the link in the description below to book a free strategy call with me today. I'll personally review your account and show you exactly where improvements can and need to be made. And once you book that call, go ahead and watch my next video, which is all about optimizing your products for Google Shopping ads. I'll see you at the next one.